Welcome. My name is Amy Klaus, and I'm the Marketing Manager for ASQ at Brookes Publishing. We're happy to be sharing information about using ASQ SE2 in a virtual environment. As we get started, I wanted to let you know that this is a recorded webinar. You're able to download the slides and other resources that we'll be showing at the URL that's on your screen. And information about obtaining a certificate of attendance will be provided at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar will share information about how to continue providing social-emotional screening to children while providing virtual services during the current health crisis. I'm very happy to have Elizabeth Twombly, author and trainer for ASQ, with me here for this webinar. Liz will be sharing information learned from her extensive work with implementing screening with children and their families. Today's webinar is designed to provide useful information while early childhood professionals are virtually providing services, as they're unable to meet families in person right now. Today's webinar specifically discusses social-emotional screening with ASQ SE2, but we wanted to let you know that there is a separate webinar recording available for administering ASQ3 virtually, and that's available at the URL on your screen. Today, we're going to be talking about the challenges and opportunities related to implementing screening during the health crisis. And then we'll talk about a couple options for accessing ASQ SE2 questionnaires for families, and also tools that are available to help professionals score and document results and follow-up. And then we'll also describe some considerations and resources available for remote delivery of screening to families during this health crisis.
Hi, okay, so welcome everyone. So glad you can join us to learn a little more about the ASQSE. I'm Liz. So just a reminder, the key features of the ASQSE, that this tool is looking at social competence as well as problem behaviors for young children. High scores are the ones that indicate concerns, which is very different from the ASQ, where a lower score might indicate a potential for a delay. Behavior in these questions are really interpreted through the caregiver who is completing the tool through their lens. So it is not at all unusual for results to vary between different caregivers, and there really are no right or wrong reports on the ASQSE. It is that caregiver's experience with that child that we're looking for, and the opportunity to identify behaviors of concern for that caregiver during follow-up. So some of the challenges that you may be experiencing are that we're all familiar with now. The fact that, you know, we need to be distanced, we're not face-to-face with families, there's issues with connectivity to the internet, device limitations, and then just the extreme stress that so many families are under right now because of the health crises. However, these challenges also are really presenting some opportunities. Again, a big one, much with screening with the ASQ in virtual environments, it's really putting the tool back into parents' hands. So even if in some settings, sometimes childcare providers were completing this tool on children, which is perfectly fine. Now, for sure, that parent will be the one who's completing the tool, which we always recommend, even if they're doing it in conjunction with a second ASQSE that the childcare provider may be completing. We always really try to emphasize the importance of having a parent complete the ASQSE. So it is a way to empower, put this tool back in their hands, and that as providers, we're really supporting the parent to complete it within the boundaries of these virtual environments. And then the other opportunity is just to be able to get in there with the ASQSE and really focus on social emotional well-being during this crisis. And as many providers and professionals have shared over the years that the ASQSE has been available, this is really one of the highlights of this tool, is opening up those conversations about young children's behaviors. And certainly during this health crisis, continuing to have parents have that opportunity to share behavioral concerns. You know, they're with their kids a lot in their home now and may not be getting out as much. So as much as possible, we want them to be able to share those concerns and try to respond to them.
So one of the big questions on many people's mind as they're switching to virtual screening is how to deliver the ASQ SE2 questionnaires to families. Many programs were used to giving physical copies of questionnaires, which is really difficult now. But I'm going to talk about two options for sharing questionnaires with parents. So the first option is to use ASQ Online, and this works with parents who have access to the internet, either through a computer or a tablet or a phone. So ASQ Online is a subscription-based service that does data management and reporting, but right now the family access piece is really helpful, and that allows parents to view and print questionnaires and complete questionnaires at a secure website. So professionals would be emailing a link to a parent, and then the parent can complete it online. There are many programs across the country that are using ASQ Online and ASQ Family Access. And if you're interested in learning more, there's some links available on your screen. So now we'll talk through how interactive video conferencing screening work with ASQ Online. So in video conferences, so if you're doing FaceTime or if you're doing Zoom or another platform, so you're doing your home visit or your screening through a video and audio method. So one option is that the parent would complete ASQ SE2 using Family Access in advance of the visit, and then during the virtual meeting, the professional and the parent would view the results together through screen share. Another option is that the parent views the questionnaire using Family Access, and it's kind of administered in an interview format, but the parent's looking at it on the screen, and then the professional can record their answers in ASQ Online. Another option for delivering the questionnaires to parents is through texting. So these are maybe the parents who don't have access to the internet. You can text them. We have made a special release of ASQ SE2 questionnaires in JPEG format. So it's one image per questionnaire page. So you can text those images to parents. So this is designed to be done during an interview, not independent completion by the parent. So because questionnaires can't be emailed, this special release is being made available. This alternate format is available for use through September 1st, 2020. So how it could be used is a professional is working directly with a family. They text these images, and then the parent has the questionnaire in front of them while the professional is asking the questions either through a video conference or a telephone visit. So in addition to the JPEG images being available, fillable PDF versions of the item response sheets and the information summary sheets are being made available. And these can be used by professionals who need to record parent responses during that interview if they don't have access to their original files or if they don't have access to a printer to print it out and mark responses. These are fillable PDFs that you can enter the responses and then save them. So now I'm going to show you a closer look at the item response sheet. So this item response sheet is included with the ASQ SE2 questionnaires. It has a brief version of each item, and it was designed for programs that want to record responses, but they wanted to return the completed questionnaire to families. And it also works well for administration during an interview format, like we'll be doing during this time period. So for the special release, you'll see over here on the left-hand side, we added some coding to help professionals score the item. So as you know, the scoring varies on ASQ SE2, depending on whether the item's asking about a competence or a problem behavior. And the information on this left-hand margin is showing the scores for the responses. So this coding at the top, the O stands for often and always, the S for sometimes, and the R for rarely or never. So when you're looking at the items, if you follow the column down, you can see what the score is for that response. So in number 1, which is a competence item, a response of often or always would be scored as 0 points. But if you drop down to item 3, stiffens and arches back, that is a problem behavior. So an often or always response would be scored as a 10. So if you look at the image on your right-hand side, there's a column that says item scoring to the right of each item, and that's where you type in the item score. To the right of that, there's the concern column where if the parent indicates they're concerned, you'd add 5 points. And then there's a comments and notes section where you can type in any comments that the parent shares. And later in the presentation, Liz and I are going to show you how you can use this fillable form in an interview with a parent. On your screen now, you'll see that this item response sheet, as you type in the scores, it automatically adds it up, and then you can compare the total score to the cutoff score. And providers can also use the information summary sheet to record the total score. So you'll see at the top, we've typed in 25 is this child's score, and you can compare that to the cutoff score of 35. There's 2 enlarged images on your right showing you that in section 1 for the scoring chart, you can type in the score. Section 2, you can mark the interpretation, whether the child's below the cutoff, in the monitoring zone, or above the cutoff. And then sections 3 and 4 and 5 are all interactive. I've showed you a close-up of the section 5, the follow-up action, where you can choose what follow-up steps that you want to take for this child. So just to talk you through how these new JPEG images and PDF, the special release files, can be used. So they work for professionals who are doing screenings with video conference or with telephone visits. So if the family does have access to the internet and can use Zoom, but the program doesn't have ASQ Online, you can email those JPEGs to the family. So the professional would either text the images or email the images for the correct questionnaire interval prior to the parent conference. And the parent can then use the questionnaire images to answer the item. Either they could try some of the answers ahead of time and jot down responses on scrap paper, or they could just wait and then the parents and professionals could discuss the items during the video conference. And then the professional would record the parent responses on the fillable item response sheet. And if you're using just telecommunication screening, so just on the phone, no video, the professional can text the images prior to the meeting, and the parent can use those questionnaire images as they answer during an interview format. And again, then the professional can record the parent's responses. They could use the item response sheets, or if they're a program that uses ASQ Online, they can record them directly in ASQ Online. So this special release of the image JPEG files and the fillable item response sheet and item summary sheets are available through Brookes Publishing. Program administrators can apply for access to the files. And this alternate format is authorized for use through September 1st, 2020. And on your screen, you'll see the website that has information about access to the special release files. There's a form that program administrators need to submit along with an agreement they electronically sign. And then after completion of that form, you'll receive an email with an access code, and then the files can be downloaded through the Brookes Download Hub. And if you access the ASQ3 special release files that were released in April, this follows the same process for that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about just supporting and engaging parents during this implementation. This is similar to the process that we talked about with the ASQ, but there are some differences with the ASQ-SE, so I will highlight those as we go along. So again, we have a provider guide that's been created, and it breaks down these steps and very specifically outlines the different steps and how you can, as a provider, support parents along the way. So these are the 6 that I'm just going to touch on briefly here. And we'll just start with number 1. So preparing parents. One of the differences with the ASQ-SE is you don't need to send out or prepare parents as much as with the ASQ. So with the ASQ, we had really recommended sending out materials list and the questionnaire and encouraging parents to try items with their child, like a week before your target screening date, because there's really a lot of benefit to them trying those items and watching for them. However, this one, you can really do it in a real-time interview. So you just need to prepare parents by making sure that close to that target screening date, you send the materials using whatever method works for the parent the best. So the materials we have for parents include a parent guide. So again, this is similar to the ASQ parent guide. It's just something that you can go through together with them that prepares them for what the ASQSE is. You can get the questionnaire to them, again, using the ASQ age calculator apps to determine which is the correct ASQSE questionnaire is very helpful. We'll have a slide that shows you more about that later in the presentation. And then as Amy mentioned, your options are mailing the paper questionnaire, emailing, using family access, the online, or texting those JPEG images to parents. So in terms of introducing screening and the ASQSE to, again, close to or on that target screening date, you're just going to go through the parent guide with the parent, and you can text that to them. That will be available in a JPEG format. Goes over what is screening, why is it important, what is the ASQSE to, talks about important points, especially the points around to describe based on your observations as a parent, your observations, your feeling, your opinions about your child's behavior and their typical or usual behavior, not behavior when they're very sick, very tired, very hungry, at which case all children perform different kind of problem behaviors when they're under those situations. So you also want to ask how you can support them to complete it. And then in terms of actually supporting administration, you're going to go through together. As Amy mentioned, they may have completed it independently prior to your phone call. The parent and provider could go through together and just do it in an interview. Again, it is helpful for them to see the images if they can, just because some parents and some, I know for myself, like if I read something, I kind of retain it a little better than just hearing the question sometimes. So there's also some illustrations, again, not as critical as the ASQ. You certainly can go through and do this in an interview format without the parent having the images, but that would be sort of the last option to probably consider if you can. It's great to have it for them. As you're going through, if they have any concerns, you can ask them for more information just by saying things like, can you tell me a little more about what you're seeing, what the behaviors are you have a concern about? And the primary thing to be careful about when you are doing this together with parents is to make sure you aren't influencing the parents' responses or sharing your opinions about the child's behavior. So sometimes parents do turn to you if you're administering them together and go, what do you think about it? Or, my child, you met them many times, prior, or you were their child care provider, what do you think? And at this point, in terms of going through the questionnaire, you just really want to get the caregiver's point of view and their observations. So be careful not to influence their responses. So another thing that you're going to be doing is documenting these parent responses. And again, if you're using ASQ online, that's not going to be too challenging, but if they have a paper copy or are using the JPEGs, you have to figure out a method for how you can record it on your end of the computer. And again, this special release fillable ASQSE item response sheet is a really nice option, and the fact that it totals scores is fantastic, because that's definitely a problem with the ASQSE is sometimes the scoring. So Amy and I thought we would just go through this a little bit together just to show you a few questions. Amy has a young child, Nathaniel. He's 4 years old, and so he's been at home with her during the last couple months and not heading out to childcare and things like that. So a number of these we can say we've already gone through. If I was the home visitor and I am going through this with Amy, she may have the JPEG in front of her on her phone. She may have the questionnaire sitting in front of her if you send it to her, or we may just be going through in a straight out interview. But however that is, on my end, I'm going to go through them one at a time to support this and document it just by asking her the questions. So Amy, if we're talking about your son Nathaniel, do you feel like Nathaniel follows rules at home or at childcare?
Well, I would say that he sometimes follows rules at home, which sometimes can be a concern for me.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that as a sometimes. And again, I would be filling out this form on my side, and I'm going to be looking at those codes over on the left-hand side. Sometimes is easy, right? Sometimes is always 5 points. Concerns, she also mentioned it was a concern, so I'm going to go ahead and put in 5 points for a concern. Concerns are always 5 points. What's going to be tricky is when, you're going to have to be looking for those 10s for the often or always or rarely or never positions. But again, those codes are given to you on the left-hand side. Because Amy is mentioning this is a concern for her, I'm just going to ask her, can you tell me a little bit more about why this is a concern for you, Amy? Like what's going on that's making this a concern?
So when we went to Nathaniel's preschool conference, I was very surprised to hear his teacher said he follows rules all the time at childcare. But I find that he doesn't always follow all the rules at home.
Okay, so then I might make a note in there just to follow up with what she's talking about, that he's following rules. And at this point, I'm not going to talk about this a lot with her, but when we go back and review it, I will talk to her more about this concern and also normalize it, right? This is not terribly uncommon, but as we're going through and just administering, I'm just going to keep going ahead and asking questions. All right, how about here, does Nathaniel destroy or damage things on purpose? How would you answer that one?
He very rarely destroys his toys.
Okay, so you'd say never or rarely.
Correct.
And if I look over there on the code, never or rarely, he's gonna get 0 points for that. How about staying away from dangerous things? And they give examples here such as fire or moving cars, pretty dangerous situations.
Right. Yes, he's very good about being careful and staying away. So I would say he often stays away from things that are dangerous.
Okay, so again, I'm looking over to the left, and in the often or always column, that's going to be a 0. And how about this one? So I know that probably Nathaniel hasn't had a lot of time to play with friends lately, but can he name a friend?
Yes, he has a couple friends in his preschool class that he talks about and can name.
Great. Okay. All right. So we'll say often or always for that. And again, that's going to be a 0. Okay. So that just, it's a little tricky. I think it'll just take a little while for you to make sure, you're kind of looking over at the codes. You don't want to talk to the parent about the point total, and meanwhile, you are going ahead and documenting the point total. So just kind of play with it a little bit, maybe practice with someone. What is, again, very nice about this form is that it's going to go ahead and total it for you, which is fantastic. There's a very low score here. It's going to be below, certainly, the cutoff of 85 points. And so we would just go through all those questions together like that. Okay, so that's the documentation. That makes it really nice, and you can, save these results pages, the item response or the summary page, you can save as with the child's initials. You're going to have to determine how it is that that's documented by program, like where do you store that information? How are you going to share it back with your program? Because, and keep the HIPAA, FERPA, all of those confidentiality pieces in place. And then finally, again, scoring, which is awesome that it may be scored up automatically if you use that form. You do want to get back quickly, and it could be, you know, with the ASQSE, again, you want to do it within 1 week, but it's very possible. For example, with Amy's son, she doesn't have too many concerns. I know it's not going to be well above the cutoff. I still want to address her concern and get information for her, but I could probably even debrief that question and share results right then and there. With the ASQSE, completing it doesn't take very long, right? Going through that interview process is only going to take you about 10 or 15 minutes, but the debrief and follow-up is what potentially can take some time if there's a lot of concerns. So if you want to prepare for that meeting, you might want to wait a few days and kind of get some of your resources together before coming back. But whatever it is, you want to do it within 1 week. You want to keep it very positive, even if there is a lot of difficult things going on for the family and behaviors that are problematic. Start by celebrating the child. You can review through the SE and all those zeros, which you saw Amy's son had a lot of zeros. All of those zeros are either pro-social strengths that her little son, Nathaniel, is demonstrating, or a lack of problem behavior. So you can always go and just highlight those 0-point items. You want to go back and discuss those items that are scored as 10 or 15 points. So in Amy's situation, she had one that had 5 points, as sometimes plus another 5 for a concern. So that would be a 10-point item. You could also have a score of 10, depending on whether it's a problem or a social lack of social competence, and then have a 15-point item. All of those you want to be able to get back to and discuss the concerns in that section or the overall section. And then you can use that fillable information summary sheet, record it there, and really just discuss those different areas. And then supporting follow-up is going to be the bulk of what you're really doing with the SC, and it's really the beauty of it, right? To find out what some of those concerns are that parents are starting to have. And even if they're small concerns, like this small concern that might be going on for Amy, if it keeps going on and if the family is still under stress, it could get worse without kind of giving some space and time and ideas for how to look at that behavior or make things better within the context of the home. So again, keep in mind the parents are going to take the lead, offer follow-up for any of the concerns regardless of the score, facilitate referrals if they're safe and available in your communities. You really need to use your professional judgment for that, and offer that ongoing monitoring. And follow-up, when we're talking about follow-up, it may be ongoing check-ins, conversations, emotional support for the family for what they're going through. It might be information and resource sharing or referrals. So follow-up is a very wide range of possible things that you might be doing. Okay, and just to talk a little bit more about what some of those options are for follow-up. You want to offer follow-up again for kids who are in the monitoring area, and you really want to pay special attention to internalizers who are in the monitoring area. So when we're thinking about internalizers, we're thinking about those kids that don't have as many social competence behaviors. You know, maybe they're pulling back a little bit, not reaching out to engage with adults or other children as much as they can. They may be regressing a little bit, reluctant to engage in activities, those kind of things, as opposed, and those kids who are internalizers just don't rack up the points as much as a child who is engaging in externalizing behaviors. So they might be going towards those dangerous things. They may really be destroying or damaging things. They may be very difficult and challenging in the home. However, those internalizers are equally concerning because we want to make sure that they're feeling comfortable with their social competence behaviors as well. So really pay attention to kids who are in that monitoring area. But also, again, any items scored 10 or 15 points. And monitor the child's behavior closely with the parent and refer if those concerns continue. Just some tips or ideas about sharing resources. Try not to overwhelm families, maybe offer one or two at a time in a format that the parent really prefers. Maybe it's written information, video clips, texting here and there. Find out from them through discussions what the format preferences they have, and be really thoughtful about not overwhelming them. It's nice to review, go through the resources together, think about them, discuss those ideas, discuss strategies, encourage parents to try some of these things with their child or try a strategy, and then check back in. How did it go? How did your child respond? How did it feel to you? And really support them in terms of engaging and active listening when they're sharing back their experiences. So again, I think the big one here is providing those resources, but trying not to overwhelm folks. And then all families are going to need a certain level of practical support getting these SEs, but then many families are also going to need just information, support simplifying information, maybe making it relevant to their family or parenting practices, making sure that those conversations are out in the open, and then really just providing the parenting and emotional support when challenges arise, which we know with the stress and things that families are going through, that many families are experiencing those challenges. The learning activities for the SE are one resource you can share. These are age-appropriate handouts that are focused on social emotional competence. It includes a newsletter for that age, parent-child activities that are just sort of, back and forth, parent-child relationship support activities. Then it also has tip sheets that are related to feeding, sleeping, or calming, which are typically subjects that come up with the administration of the ASQSE, and then some special topic tip sheets. Just a reminder, although the questionnaires cannot be emailed to families, these handouts may be emailed. So that's kind of nice to know. This is a grid, so it just shows you how these learning activities are organized. If you look to the left, those are the different options of all the different resources that are in the learning activities. Then you can look at the interval or questionnaire intervals across the top: 2 months, 4 months, 12 months. So if we look at 12 months, you can see there's a newsletter that spans that age. It goes from 9 to 15 months. Then you come down. At 9 to 15 months, we have feeding, sleeping, and a calming tip sheet. And then some of the special topics we have are body awareness, caring for yourself as a caregiver, childcare for babies, which may not be so relevant right now, media and technology. So what are some things you need to be considering there? Routines, which we know are critically important for kids, safety, stress in your child, welcoming a new sibling. Those are all options. Again, I wouldn't recommend giving them everything unless you know it's a family that wants everything, but really thinking through which resources you share with different family members to not overwhelm them, but to really hone into their concerns. Another way the learning activities are organized is by area. So those of you that have been to training or read the user's guide know there's 7 behavioral areas of the ASQSE2. Self-regulation is one that often comes up as a challenge for folks. So you can also look at an organization that way, that what you may be looking at is what's typical, the newsletter, activities, and then the calming tip sheet would be one that often you might choose if a child was really experiencing issues with self-regulation. And some of the other topics, tip sheets are calming a colicky baby, caring for yourself, media and technology, routines, stress, positive discipline. So those would be some of the different resources if you're looking by behavioral area, how you would organize that information. A few of our other favorite follow-up resources that aren't part of the ASQ system are the NCPMI, the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations, 0 to 3, the Center on the Developing Child. All of these have fantastic websites with free resources that include webinars, family engagement materials, tip sheets, podcasts, just a variety of different formats. For example, here on the Center on the Developing Child, they have one related to how to support children and yourself during the COVID outbreak. And you can see down on the bottom, they have resources that include a video resource, a handout, a podcast, another video, and some smartphone apps that they are sending you to. So again, going through this website, it's really a fantastic resource related to social and emotional development in particular. 0 to 3, again, also has that real social emotional focus. You can go in, there's a section called Parent Favorites, and you can see, they have different resources around challenging behavior, sleep. So again, these are the types of things that may come up with the ASQSA, so it's nice to have a resource to refer folks to, and 0 to 3 has some wonderful resources. And finally, this NCPMI has just a wealth of resources. You can filter them. I filtered here via family handouts, and they also have a variety of languages, as do the other. So, some of their resources are also available in many other languages. The one on the top right-hand side there, that's what a family handout looks like. So again, they have one related to sleep that might be very helpful. And when you look down on the bottom, they have a series called the Backpack series, which kind of is very helpful for both teachers and parents, and has all these topics. Again, things that may come up when you are doing the ASQSE with families, how to help your child stop biting. That may very well be something. And again, you can see there's a lot of text there. It may be a resource for you, so you have more to share with the families. It may be a resource that you send to them, but you go through together with them. So just be aware of bringing information down when you need to, or weeding through it as you need to, depending on the parents' choices and individual needs.
Great, thank you, Liz. Now I wanted to share that there is a new resource available that specifically describes using ASQ SE2 in virtual environments. The guide's on your screen, and it's also available at our ASQ virtual administration landing page, and it's included in the special release materials when you download them from the Brookes Download Hub. And Liz mentioned earlier the ASQ age calculator and adjusted sort calculators that are very helpful with ASQ administration. So there's a website version available at agesandstages.com, and then there's a free app available for Apple devices and on Google Play. So you can calculate the correct questionnaire interval, and it also helps you with adjusted scoring if any items are missed. So just as a reminder on ASQ SE2, no more than 3 items can be omitted, and there are details on adjusting the scoring on that provider guide as well as in the user's guide. There's also a free monthly ASQ newsletter that I encourage you to sign up for. And on our website, agesandstages.com, there's lots more information, including we have a interactive FAQ knowledge base with more than 200 user submitted questions. There's a networking directory and a training portal with training resources. All of the information is available for free, but some sections of the website do require free registration. on your screen now, I'm highlighting a couple resources that are available for families. You can see on the left-hand side is the new ASQ SE2 parent guide that Liz talked about earlier. We have parent activities handouts, and then also handouts about general social emotional development that line up with all of the age intervals. So all of these resources are available on our virtual administration landing page, which is on the URL on your screen now. So I wanted to let all of our listeners know that there is a certificate of attendance that you can download. So if you'll go to the URL that's on your screen now, it'll be a PDF. You can download the PDF, and then you can customize it by entering your name and the date that you watch the recording. So we thank you very much for joining us and listening to this presentation on using ASQ SE2 during this time of virtual screening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.